What's happening, everybody? It is Trey here, joined again by my dad, Sean, and today, Reactions to the Classics, we are going to be taking a look at George Harrison's Living in the Material World. We reviewed All Things Must Pass.
Yes.
Up to this point,
Tremendous.
I think it's my favorite Beatles solo record.
Agreed.
And so I was interested to dive more into George's solo work, and if this is your first time stopping by the channel, we appreciate it. Here are Reactions to the Classics. We take a look back at some of the most classic records of all time and do a detailed track-by-track review. So if that sounds like something interesting to you, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button, and if you'd like to link up with us more, you can look at our Facebook group as well as our Patreon if you'd like to support us. And all that to say, let's get into the quick facts.
Let's do it. This album was released in May of 1973. Part of it was recorded at Apple Studios in London, but most of it actually at George's home studio. It went to #1 in the US in its second week, displacing Paul McCartney and Wings. And this album, Trey, is notable. All Things Must Pass had a heavy production to it.
That wall of sound.
That wall of sound. Spector's involved. And this one, he stripped it back much more. And so it's kind of well thought of because of that. He waited a while after All Things Must Pass because the concert for Bangladesh, which had all these problems, was affected George greatly. You know, he did 2 big concerts for it, raised all this money. Our buddy Alan Klein, their manager, forgot to register it as a UNICEF charity. So the money, when he tried to distribute it in all these countries, was being taxed by those countries. He's just trying to get these people food and shelter. And so he became very disillusioned just with the whole process. And that's played out in the lyrics of a lot of these songs.
Oh, absolutely. And also you have his increased Hindu faith with the Krishna consciousness. He admitted later on, answered Patty Boyd, that it was a struggle being in this rock star lifestyle, still dabbling sometimes in drugs here and there.
Exactly.
And then going with his faith increasing with the Hindu religion. So some of that's played out in the lyrical content as well.
And all the rhythm and lead guitar parts were performed by George alone. Most of all of them are acoustic. Only Live in the Material World, Who Can See It, and that is all featured electric rhythm parts. Last two kind of use the Leslie speaker sound that was found on the Abbey Road album.
Exactly. And with that, we'll just dive into this record.
Takes us to our first track, Give Me Love, in parentheses, Give Me Peace on Earth. It was the lead single, became his second #1 in the US after My Sweet Lord went to #8 in the UK. Aside from his work on here, the guitar work, the most prominent instrument on the recording is Nicky Hopkins' piano. And that is something that is throughout this album and just tremendous. Nicky pops up in a lot of things, and man, this guy could really bring it. George said this song was a personal statement of faith between him, his God, and whoever else wanted to get involved.
Yeah, it's a plea in just kind of how he's living in this physical world. That theme starts off already on this opening song, and he has a note about like karma and reincarnation in here, saying, give me love, give me peace on earth, give me light, give me life, keep me free from birth, asking for God's help in this situation. And what I noticed from the opening seconds was his slide guitar.
So good.
Man, we had that in here a lot, and this is some of his best guitar playing, and his voice kind of cracks with passion. So I thought this was a great number to start us.
Oh, I did too, man. You knew you were in for it right away, and it was a banger to start with. That brings us to Sue Me, Sue You Blues. And the inspiration for this was Paul suing the Beatles to dissolve the legal relationship. And so there's all these lawsuits going on. He writes a song. This is a secular song, so it stands out because most of the other ones are love songs or between him and God. This one is just kind of a fire song. Some of it compare to Lennon's How Do You Sleep.
Yeah, I can see that musically a little bit, and it has it's different from a lot of the rest of the record because it has a bit of a country flair due to how the guitars are tuned and how it plays with Hopkins' piano in there. There's some kind of scathing lines. Hold your Bible in your hand, and we can go, or you can go make a new band type of thing. You get lawyer, you get your lawyer, I'll get mine. We'll go and have a bad time.
Yeah, that was good.
So I dug the lyrics on here, and just the musical backing of it with that country twinge was pretty neat.
Yeah, it definitely stands out as a different kind of track on here. One of my favorites, and that brings us to The Light That Has Lighted the World. And this song is basically viewed as a statement on his discomfort with the fame that was afforded him as an ex-Beatle. And, I think you come out obviously from the phenomenon that we've never seen since of Beatlemania, and then he hits it out of the park with All Things Must Pass. Then he does the concert for Bangladesh, so he's got all eyes on him. Man, George is a statesman. He's a great guy. He puts out this great music. And so this is kind of, he said it's kind of a story of a local boy or girl makes good. Everybody loves him, and then what does everybody do? We do it in this world really bad now. They start to turn on him. Going, oh man,
tear him down.
You've changed.
Yeah, he said in that concert at Bangladesh in '71 that he was flattered that he was receiving as much attention as John and Paul were due to his solo efforts. But then a year later, we're at this point where he wants to just be on his spiritual quest and journey.
Everybody leave me alone, man.
Exactly, and he was quoted as saying, "I've heard how some people have said that I've changed, that I'm not what I was, how it really is a shame. The thoughts in their heads manifest on their brow like bad scars from ill-feeling they themselves arouse." That's the opening verse. So that kind of sets it up. This was one of my favorites on the entire record.
Yeah, so good.
Just that theme of just calm and relaxing musically just puts his words and lyrics at the forefront, which I appreciate.
It's just a Don't Let Me Wait Too Long. It's supposed to be a follow-up single, and at the last second, it was all ready to go. In the last second, it was canceled. And a lot of people think that's why this album, well, it went to #1 in the States and #2 in the UK and sold real well initially. It didn't have staying power. And a lot of people think because they knocked this single from being released, and no one still knows why. There's some people who kind of try to guess it, but no one really knows why.
Yeah, and you do notice that it could have been a single. It's definitely the most pop-centric song.
Yeah, it's catchy.
I think on here it has everything from that signature slide guitar. We have piano, harpsichord, just a bunch of conglomeration of sounds. So I enjoyed it for that reason.
Yeah, and the track's an upbeat love song. Everybody's debating, Trey, whether it's, we get at this a lot with George Wright. Is it to his wife at the time, Pattie Boyd, or is it to his God? We don't really know, and it doesn't really matter. It doesn't change how good this song is.
Yeah, exactly. It leaves open to the listener to interpret it how they want. So I dug that. And then we're going to move on to track 5, Who Can See It? And here we get some lyrics that reflect on the Beatles' legacy. And again, going back to that theme of him just kind of wanting to be done with that and just moving on.
Yeah, exactly. His kind of personal anguish over all this fame, just like the light that is the light of the world.
And here he self-produced this. There's some orchestration in here, so it has the strings that make it sound grand with the watery guitar in there. Even though it's still subdued, it just has a bit of an epic feel to it, and also had that Leslie rotary speaker in there as well. So production-wise, it's pretty darn top-notch, and song-wise, it again is another very strong track on this record.
I agree, and in my notes I have piano top notch, but I have that on about every track.
Yeah.
But Hopkins is really bringing it on this thing. And then we're going to finish out side A with the title track, Living in the Material World. Just from the title, Trey, you can kind of tell what it's about. It's the struggle between living in this material world and fighting for your spirituality and getting closer to God, and the illusion that all your material things really are in the end. And for George and his Hindu faith, he wanted to get out of the cycle of reincarnation. So that's kind of where he's going down this road. But this thing is a musical journey. We have the rock elements, and all of a sudden the Indian music comes in, and it is a musical journey, man.
Come with the tabla, the sitar, which Harrison didn't use much in his solo career. So I did like that Indian instrumentation, gave it a bit of a different feel on this record. He mentions that he does name drop John and Paul, as well as saying we got Richie on tour, Richard Starkey, of course, and yeah, just that dualism reminds you of the classic, philosophical Rene Descartes, the dualism mind body. How does that go and interplay in life? And Harrison brings that here. So I dug everything about this.
I did too.
And we start off the B-side with The Lord Loves the One, in parentheses, that loves the Lord. And we get a bit more up-tempo compared to the last track, even though this deals with a lot of the same themes as the song Living in the Material World did. Have a bit of a gospel and blues twinge in there, and one of the better slide guitar performances by George here. So again, just kind of takes it from that same angle of not letting your possessions.
Yeah, exactly. And he even calls out rock stars. He calls out, you know, the profession that he's in that's given him all the wealth and fame, calls out politicians. That was a really good track. As far as the lyrics are really good, and I see where he's going. As a Christian, I don't necessarily agree with the theology that he's getting at in there and some of the lines, but it is a very good track, very well written, very well produced. That'll take us to Be Here Now. It has a very sparse musical arrangement and kind of recalls George's work with the Beatles from 66 to 68. Kind of has an Indian-inspired mood, use of a sitar drone, great vocal performance, acoustic, chilled vibe to this thing.
Man, I'm about to get some heat on me. This was by far my least favorite track. It was I gotta be honest, it was boring, man. It almost put me to sleep. I'm sorry, the drone in there, it just didn't do it. Just
man, you put on
wasn't
those headphones,
interesting.
You turn off the lights and you just chill, man. Wow, that surprises me, as you guys, because we don't ever talk about this because I think it's better to get a genuine.
Yeah,
I wish we would have, because I would have corrected him so he didn't put this down on film forever and someday watch this again and go,
I'm
wow.
Sorry, man. I gotta be honest on that.
No, I like your honesty,
but,
even if it's wrong, right?
But yeah, wasn't feeling this one. But we go from my least favorite to one of my favorites and try some, buy some.
Redeem yourself, Trey.
Yeah, exactly. There's a quick progression at the start. You go from trying to buying to then you deny it after you realize you don't need it. Here, again, George notes how he was kind of lost, but he opened his eyes and saw you meaning God, yes. I would assume.
Yeah, I would assume too.
This was a favorite of mine. Just it was a much more interesting to me than the previous tune, and just had a lot going for it.
I'll bunny up my thoughts from the previous tune. It has a very nice performance. Interesting, this is a George song, but he gave it to Ronnie Spector, Phil Spector's wife, and let her release it as a single a couple years before, and it really didn't have any success, so he took it back, kind of changed up the arrangement of it, busted it out, and I listened to her version. His version, in my opinion, is far superior to it. That brings us to The Day the World Gets Round. This is directly inspired by the concert for Bangladesh. It's less than 3 minutes long. I think it's a tremendous track. And it basically is just his frustration where you look around and go, man, if everybody would just get with the program, there wouldn't be poverty and all these issues in the world, because if everybody would just give a little bit, you wouldn't have to deal with that. And the frustrations he went through to see dealing with the governments and the stuff I talked about at the start of this video, and other people and the greed. And then there was record company greed that I'm not even going to get into, but on that concert for Bangladesh album stores didn't want to sell it at the price they wanted it to. Capitol Records in the U.S. wanted to take a big cut out of it. All the artists and all the engineers and everybody donated all their services, but the man at the top, imagine that, right, wanted his cut even though everybody else did it for free. So that's kind of what brought this together.
Yeah, and just adding to, we had Ringo on the drums.
Yes.
George playing a 12-string, and it had some brass instrumentation in there, added to a nice grand lush nature to the song, so I dug it. And then we finish off the record with That Is All. This is a slow track, again, about longing. I think it fit the closer perfect because it does deal with the same themes a lot of the record has. Harrison said that he had the melody in his mind and then just kind of started writing down some lyrics and it came together. I dug it. It was a relaxing track.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I mean, he said he didn't really ever give a lot of story of what it's about. Same as a lot of this stuff. It could be to a woman or it could be to his God. Who knows? But yeah, I thought it was a good way to finish, and a perfect title, That Is All. I don't know if that was intentional to be the last track or not, but that takes us to our favorite tracks. What do you got?
Well, my favorite tracks would have to be Living in the Material World,
Agreed.
The Light That Has Lighted the World, and Try Some, Buy Some.
Yeah, I'll go with those, and also Give Me Love, Give Me Peace on Earth, the opener, the one that was released as a single. Very catchy, sticks in your head. That brings us to our overall grade. We absolutely loved All Things Must Pass. I think we both gave it a 9.75, did we not?
I think so, yeah, somewhere in there.
I'm getting old, guys. I don't quite remember, but I think that's right, and you can check it out. It's below here in the link. For me, this one was just a step below it, almost just because there wasn't as much volume, obviously, coming from a triple album. But for me, this is a 9.
Ooh, wow. I dig it, man. I didn't like this one quite as much as you. I'm going to be in the 8.0, 8.25 range.
Wow, yeah, you talk about not quite as much. I got you.
And don't get me wrong, it was a very solid album from start to finish. I don't think there was as many tracks though that stood out as like My Sweet Lord or Wah Wah or some of the tunes that were on All Things
Right,
Must
I
Pass.
see that.
And this wasn't necessarily a negative to me, but at certain points, just such a calm, relaxing nature of the entire record for 40 plus minutes can be, I think, a little bit tough to differentiate one track from another.
I can see that. Actually, that's one of the parts I loved about it. But
Yeah.
it depends on what mood you are when you're listening.
Exactly, but all that to say, I know that sounds a little negative. I did love the tunes. I think Harrison's slide guitar was fantastic.
Yes, Hopkins was fantastic.
Oh yeah, and vocal performance and production, all in all, was just top notch, grade A. So good stuff here. And if we'd like to hear your thoughts on living in the material world, let us know in the comments below. We'll have some more George down the line here. And as always, thanks for the research, Dad.
It's a lot of fun.
And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. We upload many times a week. We have live streams, a bunch of fun stuff. So I'd love to have you join us here, Reactions to the Classics. And until next time, happy listening, my friends. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see ya.